Okay, Kirk, good to see you today, and to introduce you to those who are watching the program. We have been having a few testimonies of people who were telling about how the Lord had helped them or how they met the Lord, and we've been doing that about once a month. We'll have a testimony, and we're really overdue for one now. And I thought it'd be great since we had a conversation some time ago, and you're new to our church, and you and Gail, and so I thought it'd be great for others to hear your story about how you met the Lord and what led up to it and what it led to. So wherever you want to start, go ahead.
Well, I grew up in Southern California, and I was born in 1955 and graduated from high school in 1974. And the only reason I say that is it kind of puts it in the context of the culture at the time. My parents were not churchgoers, and there was no spiritual element in my household growing up whatsoever. My parents were divorced when I was in the fourth grade. And we spent quite a few years shuffling back and forth between Dad's house on the weekends and Mom's house during the week. And I was an athlete. I played football and basketball in high school, but I was always a partier. I ran around with a group of guys that like to party, and we were all athletes, and we were kind of given a pass because we got decent grades and we played sports, so we got away with things. As I got out of school, I went to college for a couple of years. Again, I had no spiritual contact of any kind. The drinking and the partying got heavier and more prevalent. And I dropped out of college and got my contractor's license and decided that I would be a contractor. In the back of my mind, I think I had always had a problem with father authority. My mom had a boyfriend who I idolized and tried to be like him. He was a businessman and an airline pilot, but there was never any connection with the father. And I became cynical about marriage and about relationships, and would use a lot of logic and books like, from the culture at the time, the Timothy Learys and all those kind of people that thought that the answer was in drugs and alcohol and expressing yourself in any way that you could. So as I went forward, things progressively deteriorated, and I went through numerous relationships and always had a bad ending. And I was not a very good really in it. There was always something holding me back from fully embracing it. But I was alcoholic, and I did party like everybody else. So about when I was 39, I had another relationship fall apart, and it was the first time I actually prayed. I looked at the sky yelling in the rain, and I swore that I would never sleep or cohabitate with another woman that I wasn't married, unless I was married to, and I'd never been married at that point. Well, God used that opening, and it was a short time later, just a month or two, that I did a repair for a woman who was a church member. And she had been hurt by a husband who had run off with their housekeeper, and she was very cynical, but we struck up a friendship. And I began attending a Baptist church on Marconi, Arcade Baptist, who had a very charismatic pastor at the time. And I began to immerse myself in the culture around me. And I would tell my friends and people, the skeptics of my friends, I would say, this is the real deal. These people really do this. They really believe this. And as I progressed through that knowledge, I remember 4 months into it, I walked into the sanctuary one day, and there the banner was September 18th through the 22nd, Billy Graham Crusade, Arco Arena. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I am really in for it now. So I ended up going, and I didn't go forward. Twice I went. And of course, everyone was praying for me. This church had a huge group of older saints who would see me in the hallway, and they would always remind me that they were still praying for me, that I would come to know the Lord. And it used to bug me. It was making me irritated. And I was constantly looking for a back door. I was always thinking there's got to be a way out of this. So this person that I had met, this friend, she had a friend who you met, Jim. His name is Matt Powers. And after sizing me up, he first time I met him, he suggested that I read Mere Christianity, and just to this person who bought me a copy of the book. So anyway, when I read the account of tearing the house down and not just doing a remodel, and that, changing your language and being polite was not quite what Jesus had in mind, that was a very scary proposition. And at that point, the push and the pull between Satan and the Holy Spirit began to really get powerful, and it really became very, very debilitating to me. And I was at a point where I was just about to lose it. I mean, I just couldn't. So I went to regularly, I was going to these Wednesday night prayer meetings. And one of the people afterwards who I was very close to, these are all 80-year-olds, it was just, they took me under their wing. And she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm not doing very well at all." And she said, "Well, do you want to do something about it?" And I said, "Well, I think I really do." And I remember saying, my words were, "I don't know if I can be a Christian, but I certainly can't go on like this." And they prayed with me, and it was a very emotional time. And that was it. I was very open about it. All my friends I was sharing with, and it was quite an experience to come into church for the first time at age 40 and hear the gospel after living 25 years, basically in just a real pagan environment, and not having any kind of contact at all with anybody that was spiritual, or who could talk to me about that. But it made sense. What really drew me from the very beginning, what really drew me to the gospel was it made sense of the world that we live in today. And when you look around, when I looked around at the world we lived in, and I started realizing, well, that's why this is the way it is. I see now it's not supposed to be this way. But to the average person on the street, like I was, they have no idea that what you're talking about. And it's just interesting, amazing.
Yeah. And what kind of other changes did you notice after you began your life with Christ?
Well, I think I became much more compassionate, and I was much less quick to judge. There's been a journey, through. When I look back now, to be honest with you, when I look back now on the people that were in that church, and they were good people, don't get me wrong, but I don't have a whole lot in common with those type of people anymore. My progress has been one of acceptance, and I think it's a little bit more open and maybe just a little less dogmatic than what I was brought up in, although I still consider myself to be a good Baptist. I have a healthy dose of Calvinism.
Okay.
A healthy dose.
Sure. Well, I know that there are a lot of people today who are in a similar situation as that you were in that they have not really had much background in the church or in Christianity. They maybe have friends who are Christians, or they have gone to a funeral or a wedding or some special occasion at a church, but pretty much they live their lives separately from the Christian community. And so what you've been sharing is something that I think would be of interest to someone like that. Because many people think, well, if I wasn't raised in it, therefore I can't really, this late in life, I can't really go there, And it is true that many people come to Christ when they're very young, and hopefully stay with him,
Well, the hardest part, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it jogged my memory. The hardest part when I came to the Lord, and I run up the white flag, and I was declared innocent at that point. That's my take on the way it works. Is the gavel comes down and the verdict is innocent. Yeah. And when that happened, I started thinking about it and thinking about it for months, and I came up with the hardest thing about people like myself is you not only do you have to admit that you've been wrong about everything in the world, but you've been wrong your whole life.
Yeah.
And not only you, but everybody that you know, everybody that you raised you, everybody that you've ever come in contact with, for the most part, because I didn't fellowship with believers, they are wrong and they've been wrong their whole life. And that's hard to do when you're 40 years old.
Right. Yeah. Undoubtedly, God was speaking to them and to you before you came to Christ in various ways that you didn't recognize. But it's the whole framework that's different. It's as in when it says in the Bible that if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creature, or rather, there is a new creation, is a better translation. It means there's a whole new world. Everything is different because you are seeing it in its proper framework for the first time. But anyway, it's a revolution. And you and I are about the same age. I'm a little older than you, but I know what life was like back then in the 60s and early 70s. And there was a lot of people who came to Christ during that period, during the Jesus movement, so-called. You came along a little later than that to the Lord, but still, you're from that generation. Well, thank you so much, Kirk. And I know there'll be other things we'll want to talk to you about in the future, and what the Lord is teaching you these days, and how He's leading you, because it's not just a beginning, right? It's an unfolding life that you discover as you go along with the Lord each day.
Oh, definitely. And there's been challenges, and there's been, mistakes, and it's always a challenge. It's never going to be, why do I do the things I don't want to do? Romans chapter 7,
Right. Yeah. It's you're in a process. You enter a process when you come to Christ, and that process is not always easy. It's sometimes very difficult, and you don't arrive at the end at right away. We're going to be with the Lord, right? When we meet the Lord in in heaven, or when He comes to take us home to Him, why that a lot of work will be done in that instant. But a lot of work has been done already. And if we're sincere, if we really have truly said yes to Jesus, then whatever our mistakes, whatever our failings, He's there to help us get up and keep moving and growing. And it's a life of growth, right? So,
thank you for having me.
Sure. Okay. Well, God bless you, Kirk. And I know all the people in our church are so glad you and Gail have become a part of our fellowship, and we'll look forward to getting to know you better as the days go by.
Very good. Me too.
All right.